We have in India a special emphasis on this problem. In none other philosophy, this phenomenon is so much underlined. Avidya. Ignorance is avidya. What is avidya? Indian philosophy has this great distinction. It has discerned the phenomenon of ignorance and underlined as a most important problem, both of life and of philosophy. And that is why every Indian philosophical system assigns a very important place to the discussion of avidya, of ignorance. And yet this problem of ignorance is ultimately found to be so insufficiently dealt with, although underlined, according to Aurobindo, it has been insufficiently dealt with. And there is also a failure, not only insufficiently dealing with, there is a failure to explain exactly this phenomenon of ignorance. And to underline that problem and to expound it fully, the first part of the second volume is entirely given to this problem. The relationship between knowledge and ignorance. If ultimate reality is luminous, is Satchidananda, if supermind is absolutely comprehensive consciousness, if this reality is permanent, it is not to be manufactured, it exists. If it exists, and if there is supramental light all over, if it is a comprehensive light, it must be present all over. Then logically there should be no such thing as ignorance at all. Supermind exists everywhere, is omnipresent. Satchidananda is everywhere, and Satchidananda is supramental in character. Why is there then so much of darkness all around us? What is this ignorance? Where has it come from? What is the connection between knowledge and ignorance? This problem is a tremendous problem and requires a tremendous analysis. For the first time in the history of thought, this problem has been squarely dealt with, and that is in the Life Divine. That is one of the greatest values that we can assign to this great volume. In no other volume in the whole world history, you go around, nowhere the phenomenon of ignorance has been analyzed so greatly and so much in detail. And its relationship with knowledge, and how ignorance can arise from knowledge. How even when knowledge subsists, ignorance also can subsist at the same time. How this is possible? That is why you will see all the chapters. I'll read out to you the titles of these chapters, which are extremely important. You start first of all with the indeterminates, cosmic determinations, and the indeterminable. Brahman, purusha, ishwara, maya, prakriti, shakti. The eternal and the individual. These three chapters describe to you Satchidananda. The indeterminable is a supreme reality which is not determinable. It cannot be limited. It is the other word of the word infinite. The ultimate reality is ananta. If ananta, it is indeterminable. If it is indeterminable, how there can be cosmic determinations which we find in the world? There are many determinations in the world. Even truth, beauty and goodness, these three great determinations, they are cosmic. Wherever you turn in the world, these three great cosmic phenomena, they appear. They are distinguishable from each other, therefore they are determinations. Even these determinations come out of indeterminates. Avyakta and Vyakta. There are indeterminates and there are determinates. And what is the relationship with the indeterminable? This great metaphysical problem which has occupied the space of many of Western thought and also of Indian thought. This whole problem of the reality as infinite, as spaceless, timeless, and yet that which manifests as space and time. The relationship between the two, Aurobindo discusses this problem in this chapter. It is this very concept which is further analyzed under three headings. The whole reality can be described as Brahman, purusha, ishwara. These three terms which appear in Indian philosophy, pell-mell. The correct distinctions between these three terms is to be found in the Upanishads, where you can exactly find out the distinction between these three terms. But even in the Upanishads, the exact definitions are not given because these books are not philosophical treatises. They are descriptions of realities which were experienced and realized by the rishis. And therefore, these terms are accurately used. But their exact connotations for us to derive is quite difficult. And that is why you find among the commentaries on the Upanishads so many variations. You use the word ishwara as Brahman, Brahman as purusha. Sometimes we use the word purusha only for the individual and never for the supreme, never for the Brahman. Sometimes you interchange them, and there is a pell-mell confusion with regard to these three terms. And there is great confusion in Indian thought in regard to these three terms. Are they really interchangeable? Are they distinguishable? Are the distinctions quite clear? Why are they used so closely with each other? It is in this chapter Aurobindo makes absolutely clear the distinction between Brahman, purusha and ishwara and their corresponding powers. Usually the word Brahman is used with Maya as its power, Prakriti as the power of purusha, and Shakti as the power of ishwara. And what exactly is the significance of these three terms? Because in Indian philosophy, again, these three terms are used in a very confused manner. And there is a lot of confusion among philosophers in regard to these three terms. And yet, each term has its own meaning. Maya can't be equated with Prakriti, Prakriti can't be equated with Shakti, and yet they have got connection between them and their interrelationship. What precisely is this interrelationship? It is, I have seen no other book excepting this book where these distinctions are so clearly laid out. And then the question of the relationship between the eternal and the individual. In fact, these three chapters are metaphysically supreme chapters. They describe the ultimate reality, Satchidananda, in all the ramifications with complete precision that a metaphysical thought requires. To my mind, they are unsurpassed expositions of the idea of Satchidananda. Then, having once again described the Satchidananda, and in this description, the description of Satchidananda is that of the supramental Satchidananda, because supermind is the consciousness of the Satchidananda itself. Therefore, in all the three chapters, there is a complete description of the supermind, but supermind as a supermind of the Satchidananda. So supramental Satchidananda is described in these three chapters. And then the question of questions is raised. The divine and the undivine. If all this is Brahman, sarvam khalu idam Brahma, if this is the fundamental proposition of the Upanishad, if all this is Brahman, why there is so much of evil, ugliness, pain, suffering, error, ignorance, all that is undivine? This question of questions, the most fundamental and most difficult question, Sri Aurobindo raises, the divine and the undivine. What is undivine? And then why should there be undivine at all? What is the origin of it? What is the remedy of it? And these questions are now, first, is this undivine a mere illusion? That can be one answer. All this is Brahman, but if you see undivine, it is an illusion. It doesn't really exist. That is one answer. So Sri Aurobindo discusses this big problem. Is it a mere illusion? If you say that it's only illusion, then everything sarvam khalu idam Brahma, everything is Brahman. You don't see Brahman, that is your fault. It's an illusory perception, but actually everything is Brahman. This is how sometimes the problem is sought to be answered. That all this is Brahman, but if you don't see it to be Brahman, it is because you do not, your eyes are closed. So Sri Aurobindo asks this question, is it really illusory? What is the meaning of illusion? What is the psychology of illusion? Can you really regard the whole world as an illusion? It's one of the most difficult problems because of the fact that in the history of Indian philosophy, the word illusion has been used so commonly. The idea the world is mithya, the idea the world is a Brahma, is so broadcast that we tend to forget to analyze his words precisely. We assume we understand them because it is so familiarly used. And Sri Aurobindo points out that all these terms are to be analyzed properly, perfectly. there is a special meaning of the word illusion. Special meaning of the word Brahma, mithya. What is meaningless? Is the word meaningless? What is the meaning of saying it is meaningless? What are the degrees of meaninglessness? As Shankaracharya speaks of the different levels, Vyavaharik Satta, Paramarthik Satta, and even Pratibhasik Satta, that which appears only, and then Paramarthik Satta, and then there is the Paramarthik Satta, different degrees of illusion. And even then, all this as illusion and that being real. Even that, are these distinctions valid? Valid only for the time being? Ultimately valid? And if not, why not? And this question Sri Aurobindo discusses at length because, according to Sri Aurobindo, one of the greatest difficulties of India has arisen from the fact that the world has not only been declared as illusion, but also meaningless. And therefore, the one call is you renounce the world, give up the world, and only turn to that which is real, the Brahman. Is that the real message of Indian philosophy? Was that the message of the Veda? Was the message of the Upanishad really? Or is it one of the developments of that message? And what is the ultimate value? How will you judge whether this is a correct message or not? If the world is meaningless, in what sense is it meaningless? If it has a meaning, in what sense it is meaningful? And if it is meaningful, what is to be done in this world? Therefore, Sri Aurobindo discusses, in connection with illusion, three important phenomena which are the causes of illusion. The mind, the dream, and hallucination. These are the three important phenomena which can be considered to be, when I see a dream and wake up from dream, I say, oh, it was a dream. What I saw was only an illusion. It's nothing here now. Can world be described as a dream? Or hallucination. Hallucination is also a similar phenomenon. I am not dreaming, but suddenly I see somebody here and suddenly disappears. It's a hallucination. Is the world something like that? Or it can be only mental construction without anything. I can make a story, I can write a drama, I can write a fiction, a mental construction. The facts have never happened and yet I describe the whole story. So mental construction I can make. Is the world like that? Is the world a mental fiction written by somebody, by the mind? Is that the sense of illusion? So Sri Aurobindo discusses this question of illusion in all its possible manifestations and asks this question, in what sense, if at all, is the world an illusion? Or is it an illusion at all? If not, in what sense it is not? And the next chapter is therefore reality and the cosmic illusion. Because an illusion is illusion only in relation to reality. You cannot recognize illusion to be illusion unless you are awakened from dream to waking state. Then in past you can refer that I had an illusion. So what is the relationship between reality and cosmic illusion? This is an extremely important question. In fact, it is in these two chapters Sri Aurobindo expounds Shankara's philosophy, to my mind, as never expounded in the history of thought. And it is thoroughly criticized as never before criticized. Because Sri Aurobindo found that this theory deserves to be criticized in order to underline the truth of the theory of illusion and the error in the theory of illusion. And unless you do it, the whole question of endeavoring the manifestation Superman on the earth is meaningless, is out of the question. If the world is meaningless, if the world is an illusion, the question of manifestation of supermind in the world is entirely out of the court. And yet, according to Aurobindo, supramental manifestation is inevitable, and he wants to call the whole mankind to make all the effort for it, the most difficult effort. If it has to be done, then this question of illusion has got to be thoroughly discussed and openly, fully, in the interest of the highest truth. So, these two chapters are actually an exposition of Shankara's philosophy and his criticism. And then Sri Aurobindo now comes to the positive. This is the destructive part, the critical part. But having done it, how do you still explain the fact of illusion? If the world is not an illusion, it can't be said there is nothing like illusion at all in the world. So Sri Aurobindo makes a distinction between world as a whole as an illusion and the phenomenon of illusion in the world.